Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Tonight's the most important video I've done to date, I think, as we're starting to see a lot of hype around the ICOs. With dozens of these things already been and dozens more planned to come online, I really want to aim to help you guys understand how they work and not get sucked into the hype and the enthusiasm that sees people lose money. This is a chart of how bubbles form and how they pop and the sentiment surrounding them, okay? So not all companies go through this cycle. Good ones can continue to grow, but the ones with no fundamentals will become victim to this cycle, and a lot of guys are going to lose money. And I started this channel because I really wanted to help give you guys some insight into what I've learned in the last 5 years of crypto, as well as the last 10 years I've been investing. Okay, so if you haven't watched my video on the top 5 altcoins, please watch that before tonight's video. I go into detail about some projects I think are going to succeed and some ones that I don't think are going to succeed and why, and realistic expectations as we move forward. Okay, so please watch that one if you haven't watched that already. So where are we in this cycle? Okay, so a lot of guys are reading about crypto millionaires that bought back in this phase before it was popular, before anyone knew about it, and they want to get rich quick. I think I read last night someone say I'm just going to buy 20 different small coins because one of them will go up 5,000% and I'll get rich. When I start to read stuff like that, it really worries me that guys are just throwing money blindly around and they're going to lose it, okay? So, like I say, do your own research and investing in a coin that has a fundamental, and if it drops 50%, are you going to be happy to buy more and hold it for the long term because you really believe in it? It's gonna be a bit of a history lesson tonight, and I want to go back to Bitcoin and when I first started buying back in 2013 here, and we had a huge run up in hype as Bitcoin was going to change the world and change finance, digital money, and sure enough, we just had this period of years and years where no one was interested in Bitcoin again. Okay, and it does take years for sometimes for these things to actually grow real world legs and have projects and before we actually start to see them recognize their true value. So a lot of you guys are buying these ICOs in the hope of making quick money, and sometimes it takes years for these projects to really sink their teeth in and nut out a project that's going to bring in revenue and be a valuable company in the long term, if that makes sense. So I know it's probably not what you want to hear, but I just want to get your head around how this all works, and I don't want to see you guys lose any money. Okay, so Snapchat. Now, this is an IPO, so initial public offering, which is where the term ICO, initial coin offering, was coined from. But Snapchat raised its money, $3.4 billion at $17 a share, and so often happens is these things open at $24, investors make a bit of money, but sure enough, where are we today? $18, and once the hype wears off, sorry, where are we? We start to get down in this cycle where the company will realize its true value. Okay, so we're seeing these things in the real world as well as in the crypto world, and I think sentiment is the most important thing to get your head around, and always stay level headed. Ask yourself the question, am I getting sucked into the hype? So back here, I wasn't around trading back in the 2000s here when the dot-com bubble happened, but the dot-com bubble peaked in February of 2000, and once we saw the internet and internet was going to change the world, okay, all these companies were listing and anything.com was getting millions of dollars thrown at it. And sure enough, investors continued to pour money in until they didn't, okay, until it popped and these things crashed back down to reality. Now, from those ashes, sure, we had Facebook, Google, great companies rise and thrive, and they've gone up, thousands of percent in value. But I want you to realize that only a handful of good companies are going to succeed. And I think in the next slide here, I to talk about pets.com, a really famous example of a company that got surrounded by hype back in the dot-com bubble. You were never going to go to a pet shop again. Pet food, supplies, everyone would only ever go to pets.com from now on. And sure enough, those guys lost $150 million in the first 9 months. And the shares, I think they listed at $11, rose to a high of 14, but quickly fell below a dollar. Realized their true value because the team behind that project and the expectations, the rubber just didn't meet the road. And I think that's what we're going to see with a lot of these ICOs, okay? So here we've got a list of just the top 50 Ethereum tokens of the last 90 days, and already dozens and dozens of these projects have raised millions of dollars, and there's dozens scheduled for the next few months of the year and into next year. But like I said, let's just be aware. There's been some good ones, and some, you guys know the ones I think are going to succeed, and there's probably more, but a lot of these aren't going to succeed. And the main thing I want you to get your head around is the time frame. So it's going to take, if these companies that are valued at hundreds of millions of dollars, it's going to take time for them to realize their true value, create revenue. And if you're paying money for shares in something worth this much, you're saying that it's going to return future value for you. If you're hoping that those shares are going to grow and the company's going to be worth more than this in the future, okay? I don't want you throwing money at things just because you think it's going to go up in the next few days or weeks or when it hits an exchange or whatnot. I want you to be happy to hold it long term. So here's an example of one of the better ones I've talked about, Augur, or the REP token. Now, guys bought this for under $1 when they had their ICO. Sure enough, it gets listed on an exchange, and a lot of guys are able to make big, 10x returns here as it gets listed, but it dies down to reality here and gets down to what, $2. Okay, so if you're getting sucked in and buying here in the hype, okay, if you miss out on the ICO, or even if you don't get to be one of the first people to sell when it hits an exchange, are you really going to hold here when your money's down 80%? Or do you believe in the project? And sure enough, what we see is these good ones are going to take off again. Now, like I said, August been one of the best ones, so it's grown in value, but even in terms of Ethereum here, okay, if we click on the rep, the Augur token, in terms of Ethereum, you would have been better off just holding the Ethereum token in general, okay? So I just want to give you guys some perspective and some realistic expectations on these tokens, because there's plenty of bad ones that have performed 100 times worse than just holding Ethereum over this run, okay? Hopefully this isn't too much of a downer. I do think Ethereum's going to continue to grow in price because of all these companies that are raising hundreds of millions of dollars, but I just want you to be aware of where we are in this curve, and we're starting to get a little bit of media attention. By all means, it's not on the mainstream news channels yet, and we're not reading about it in the papers, but we are starting to see enthusiasm and some people thinking they're going to get rich quick, okay? But I still think we're in somewhat of an early stage somewhere along this wave. I think Ethereum as a whole isn't going to crash and burn. If it did happen to run up to say $1,000 in the next month, then I definitely think we'd have a pullback at some stage to where we are in the current development, the current timeline of Ethereum before we revert back to the mean and onwards and upwards in the future. So just be aware of all this, okay? Because like I said, I know for a lot of you guys, this is your first investing experience, and you're throwing at money at some of these companies that have nothing more than a white paper or an idea. You click on their fancy website, okay, and you go, wow, I want to throw money at this. I think it's going to make me rich. Bancor raised over $150 million in less than 3 hours yesterday, okay? That's the most we've seen raised so far. I don't want these things to get crazy and more projects crash and burn than succeed. That's going to give Ethereum a bad name, but I guess just keep your expectations realistic. Invest in projects you believe in, you like the fundamentals, and you're going to be happy to hold long term if the price drops dramatically. Okay, be smart with your money, respect your capital, and I hope you appreciate this video, guys. So thanks for tuning in.